All right, take 3.
Yeah. It's the best, boys. It's the best, boys. It's the best, boys. Yeah. How's it going, everybody? Slob Thomas.
I'm back.
I'm here with my friend.
We're brother. Kory with a story. How's everybody doing?
Best Boys of Film Podcast, number 17. The number 8 film history podcast in the country of Kazakhstan. Really resisting making a Borat joke.
Yeah, I mean, we love Borat, so we love Kazakhstan. So those two go hand in hand, truly, right?
Truly. Welcome back, everybody, and we're here talking about, one of the reasons we're doing this podcast. I feel it's like everybody's like entry into weird movies. Not everybody's, but a lot of people's.
Mine for sure.
We got Sir David Lynch, who is not a sir.
Is he? I was gonna ask. Is he knighted?
I was like, I couldn't let that linger immediately.
He should be. What are you doing, Queen?
Yeah. He should be an honorary British citizen. And knight. Well, here we are. So you got how's it going over there?
So you good.
You have a beautiful face behind you.
Oh yeah, this is
with a mustache.
This is the best. This is for Wild at Heart. This is the best picture of Nick Cage that I could find. I think it's beautiful, and it's from a 2005 USA Today magazine thing, I guess, article. It's dope as fuck. But anyways, this week was nuts though. I had to go back out to LA. I was back on Euphoria, and a really like tough scene. There was an ensemble cast on set, which is doesn't happen very often, and it was very interesting. It was I wish I could talk about it, but that's all I can really say. But how was your week?
Same as it ever was. I don't even know why you ask me, because the answer is always the same.
Well, you never know. I don't know.
I
went to a cookout yesterday.
I do a podcast. I work a regular job. I have a D&D group, and I've been working on Warhammer stuff. I watch a couple movies. That is every week for me. The same thing every time.
Copy that.
No, I know. I just feel like every time you ask me, you're like expecting me to say something, and then I'm like, don't know what to say, and then because I have nothing.
Well, I don't know.
What is there to say?
I mean,
I can't say I was on some cool set somewhere. I have nothing to say.
No. I mean, like, there's things going on at the house, things going on in life.
Yeah, I mean, no one wants to hear about me, cleaning a toilet or something.
I mean, that sounds like it would be pretty bad.
It doesn't make good podcasts. But no, it's not you. But I've been meaning to say that because it's just not. I'm just hanging. This is me. This is what I do. Right here. But I watched a couple movies.
Yeah. Were they any good?
They stunk.
Really?
No, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. I've already seen one of these movies already. And the other one, I maybe have built up a little bit in my mind to be something else. So
interesting.
So I think that my expectations were a little subverted, but also needed to realize that this is David Lynch and this is a standard Lynch affair.
Yeah, I went blind on these both. I had no idea what either one was supposed to be about. The only thing I knew was Nick Cage was in Wild at Heart from the poster, and that was like, all right, cool. I'll probably.
And Laura Dern.
Oh. Yeah. Of Jurassic Park fame. But she was great in that. These are great. I really like these. I was not gonna lie, I was very, very confused after Lost Highway and had to read into it to understand it. But Now knowing that, they're awesome. I like these both.
Yeah.
Which one do you want to start with? Lost Highway or Wild at Heart?
I figure we should start with the earlier one.
Was that Lost Highway or is that?
You don't know?
Oh, I know Wild at Heart was 1990. Lost Highway was
1997.
okay.
So we're
Cool,
not
got it.
googling
Sorry.
on the podcast.
I have both the pages up, but yeah. Would you want to go through your plot points of the movie?
I mean, it's about Wild Heart's about a relationship, and they're on the run. It is kind of a road movie, I would say, but it is really not. It kind of, instead of like a typical road movie being like the destinations on the journey, this is more just like they're in hotel rooms and bars. They go see some, concerts. I guess like they find a car wreck on the way, but so much of the movie is also like the mom chasing them, but then all of a sudden the mom like disappears from the movie until the end. The mom apparently a lot of the movie is revealing the backstory of the movie, which I thought was interesting. I thought the most interesting like part is what happened before and why this is the way it is, and you kind of get these little flashbacks. There's a lot of repeated flashbacks as well. It is and it kind of tells that story more so that way, and then you're kind of just in this world of these two characters, having there's a lot of sex and just like pillow talk, and they're telling each other random stories. And then the second half of the movie, it actually starts like moving forward past that, with them being on the run and what they're going to do, because Nicolas Cage broke parole or whatever. He was in jail. He was framed. Or not framed, but... And the beginning of the movie is super cool, which we should talk about in first. But that's essentially how it goes. The mom is trying to stop Laura Dern from eloping with Nicolas Cage.
The opening of this movie was hilariously, like, not in like it's legitimately funny, but just I didn't expect it to just go like to the top immediately. The guy comes down with a knife out of nowhere and is just like accusing Nick Cage of sleeping with Laura Dern's mom. And Nick Cage just kills him. It's so bloody and violent too. Like it's like that. It's kind of like that the bright red blood that's a little cartoony, but it was just so like intense right from the get-go.
Yeah, it's really abrupt. You're just kind of like, the credits are really long, and there's just like, it's all fire, explosions and stuff. Very, very Lynch. This movie reminds me a lot of both of these movies remind me a lot of Twin Peaks. And this movie was made actually after the pilot was filmed for Twin Peaks. They did the pilot, they did this, and then they did the rest of the show. And production wise. And it shows. This probably is the most Twin Peaks actors in it. On the background, Grace Zabiskie is the one. It plays the Cajun torture lady. Jack Nance, who's from Eraserhead. Several other small characters. I kept like pointing it out. It's like a who's who of David Lynch used actors.
Yeah. I really like I'm surprised that the guy who's in Blue Velvet and Twin Peaks and and Dune, I'm surprised not to see him in either of these movies, because I feel like I see him in almost all of Lynch's movies.
What? You talking about
The guy
Kyle
plays-
MacLachlan?
Yeah.
Oh, he's only in the two movies in Dune. That's it. He's not in all of his stuff.
Oh, isn't he in Twin Peaks too, though?
Yeah, Twin Peaks in 2 movies.
Gotcha. But, After the intro of the movie though, like
So,
the fire stuff was nuts. Like it with the metal music.
yeah, I like that was what was a hallmark of both of these films. Was the use of metal music. The only Lynch films I haven't seen at this point are Elephant Man and Straight Story. And these are the only two films that only two works of his that I'm familiar with that use metal music so prominently. It really does create this huge like contrast and sound. You're just hit with this, punch in the face, and it's guttural. That's the appeal of metal music. But when you're using it in a film like this, especially like cutting from a quiet moment to this like flashback or this vision, and I think for Laura Dern's character, usually represents anxiety, or trauma, triggering of a trauma, of past traumas. But I found that really interesting, and I feel like it kind of speaks to the time. But the 90s were grunge, and I guess late 80s was very hard. It was like hard rock and kind of transitioning from glam to more harder rock before grunge really took over. And I thought that was interesting. The club that they went to, as much as it was like metal sound, it was very much remind me of like a hard rock club, like the kind of stuff that our Uncle Dave would been into when he was young.
Yeah,
because that's like his prime. Around this time. So I thought I did think of him through in those scenes. Our uncle was a pretty big time bass player and toured in a fairly big hair metal band, and then kind of he's not gonna hear this. He's kind of washed out the rest of his life, but it's kind of an interesting story. They remind me of that vibe, that scene, of his that prime of when he was doing his thing. But it's interesting because it's the metal of the time of the 90s, but it's also like Nicolas Cage even in particular is so rockabilly, Elvis inspired. He straight up talks like Elvis, and he's got snakeskin jacket that's a symbol of his identity and personal freedom. And
God, I love that.
And it's felt very libertarian to me. I don't know why. Just that statement sounds very libertarian to me. Not that that's a problem. It's just something about the character.
Yeah, it was super funny.
The juxtaposition of the rockabilly and the retro with the modern day and the metal. And I remember when we watched Crybaby that I kept wanting to compare these two movies. Compare it to a movie that I hadn't seen yet, just off of what I know about it, which is it involves Elvis impersonator, essentially. Not impersonator, but someone who's really into Elvis. And this movie is very different. It's very different than that. It does have the rockabilly, through line that came out in the same year, and there's elements you can point to each other, but at the same time, the feels of the movies are completely different. What do you think about that?
I can see what you mean. I could definitely see what you mean between like the Johnny Depp Nick Cage comparison. I was gonna say about the music, the metal music when it came on, I found it jarring at first, and then but then it just kind of step back, remember the time, but also it just kind of works in the same. And after it seems kind of like jarring, it kind of blends in and works, and ended up just like I really liked it. It helped with the aesthetic of the whole movie. And then with their like hardcore dancing, where Nick Cage is just flailing his arms around and kicking his legs, that you'd see in like a hardcore punk show.
A little bit, but it's also like mixed with like regular with like dancing of that time. Like it's it's just super fast. So like they have to move extremely fast to the BPM,
you pair that with the strobe light that they had going, and it made this awesome looking scene when that first introduction.
It was very punk feeling though. You're all right, because even though it was metal music, this whole vibe felt very punk to me.
I even think Nick Cage or one of the characters later in the movie even refers to like them being as like punk stuff. But I can't remember which character, but Yeah, it really. I feel like that scene kind of set the tone for the rest of it because you go from all that metal stuff, and then after he gets into that fight with that dude, he starts singing the song, and it ends up being this like nice slow ballad um, that he's singing to Laura Dern. But I feel like that just is what the entire rest of the movie feels like, just these weird, intense, and also like slow and sweet, like peaks and valleys.
It swings and then like hard. They're hard. There's like abrupt changes in the vibe
Mhm.
and what's even going on. Like you think you know it's where it's going, what's happening, but you really don't. There's things that I don't know, I don't understand fully, like what happened, what was the deal with Laura Dern's mom. Lula is her character. Sailor and Lula are the two characters' names. Lula's mother, who's actually played by her real life mother,
I thought they looked similar.
Diane
They
Ladd.
look, yeah, they look so much alike.
And they her boyfriend, played by Harry Dean Stanton, who is in a couple Lynch things but is a long time actor, and they capture him and they're gonna kill him. Her secret boyfriend is gonna kill her real boyfriend, but it's like these other people. It's Grace Zabiskie, who plays Laura Dern's mother in Twin Peaks. She's like leader of this trio of weird artsy criminals. I don't even know what I'd call it. And she's got a thick Cajun accent because they're supposed to be in New Orleans, and I don't understand where it was supposed to go. They introduced that rich guy character, who was actually the voice. I'm just gonna do this all the time, but his voice is burned into my brain because he narrates the video game Civilization 5. And anytime you get a new technology, he like says a little blurb about it or whatever. And when I heard him talk, I was like, "That's the Civilization 5 guy." But his story just ended and he didn't go anywhere. They're like Mr. Reindeer. They showed us who Mr. Reindeer was, and he just appeared, and that was it. Like I said, the mother's storyline just appears and disappears, and then comes back at the end of the movie. It's interesting. I don't know how I felt about it because like I like. Apparently, the torture scene with Harry Dean Stanton was supposed to be longer, and they cut it back because it was like, apparently, I think there might have been rape involved or something, and they test screen like people like threw up or something. Wow. I don't remember the throw up part. Don't hold me to that, but everything else is supposedly true. That people had a really strong reaction to that in the test screen. They cut it back. The right hand man to Grace Zabiskie's character is Jerry Horn from Twin Peaks, who's also famous from being in the Warriors. He's the guy who clinks the bottles together. Warriors, come out and play. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I had kind of issues with that part in the middle because it was interesting visually and the characters were interesting, and then they just didn't go anywhere. And that was probably my biggest issue with the whole movie. And like I'm sure someone that has seen this more than once. I've only saw this once. I've seen Lost Highway. This is now my third time.
Oh wow.
So I think that both of these movies do bear multiple watching. I think this one, as much as it is more of a conventional film, I think would be harder for me to watch over and again. Like, especially just after seeing it. After I finished Lost Highway, I was already like, I could start this over now. If I had the time and had nothing to do, I could just start this back over again. And like looking for, oh, now I know what this is. Now I know what that was. Now I know what this is. Because like once you figure out it's like Mulholland Drive. Lost Highway is the sister movie to Mulholland Drive. I think Mulholland Drive is done better, which is why I think people laud Mulholland Drive, and everyone that knows Lynch brings up Mulholland Drive versus Lost Highway, considered one of his deeper cuts, even though I think that they have a lot of similarities. What do you think about any of that? I guess I'm jumping to Lost Highway. I'm sorry. I'm getting scattered.
No, it's all right. But I definitely agree on the Mulholland Drive. Once you mentioned it when we were talking about it before the podcast, I immediately was just like, yeah, this is like a like I guess less iconic kind of scenes and happenings version of that, but we'll say that for Lost Highway. The Cajun characters, I thought because of the silver dollar things that meant like, all right, they took the job, so like they're just gonna be in it for the rest of the movie. But I guess it was more like they just put out, like once they found out what city they were going to, they just put out a call into every one of those cities. Because when they get into Big Tuna, there's
Oh, yeah, that's.
the
I guess.
other
Yeah,
blonde.
you're right. That is what it's probably supposed to be.
But I agree that it was like it kind of I didn't make sense until like it just got there and the what's it called? Um, you realize that she's one of the people that's actually going to do the hit because she lies about that he doesn't have a hit on him.
Oh yeah, and that's Isabella Rossellini from Blue Velvet. Um, yeah, that was. That's what I was like. I thought this was going. Her character was kind
Yeah.
of random a little bit, but there's a lot of characters that are in it for little bits, and they kind of don't amount to much on their own. Even the final villain of the film, Bobby Peru, who
I
is
love him.
awesome. Awesome. This is one of the best Willem Dafoe characters. Not because it's complex or deep, just because it is fucking executed so well.
It is perfectly over the top.
The creep factor though is there. Like that's David Lynch is always great about creating characters that are silly and villainous, like mustache twirlers, but they also will fucking creep you out in your soul. And like the scene with him and Laura Dern in the hotel room is
Oh my god, so
dark.
uncomfortable.
Yeah, it is very, very dark. And then, but then in the end, he gets just desserts, and it is so funny. And his whole
Oh my
thing,
God.
like even like, those are dummy bullets, you dummy. And his fake teeth through the pantyhose.
Yeah, his
just
tiny
looks
little
so
teeth.
good.
Yeah, I thought that the dentures that they used for the fake teeth and stuff, it looked so good. Because he didn't really have a bad lisp or anything. He could, like when they do the prosthetics and stuff like that, especially back then, it impaired the dialogue delivery, but it works and it feels so real. And yeah, Willem Dafoe, this might now be my new favorite, like Willem Dafoe role. It's
Bobby
just so over the
Peru.
top.
It's a funny name. It's a comic book character name.
Yeah.
Like a Dick Tracy. He's very much like a Dick Tracy villain. I think that's why I like him. Pure evil, but
Oh,
yeah.
for sure.
So in the end, just to spoil, they go to try to do a bank, like a rob a. I don't know if it's a store or a bank or something. They're getting supplies
It's hard
there.
to sell.
And they're robbing the place, and instantly, Willem Dafoe kills everyone in there, and then is double crossed Nicolas Cage. And then as they're running out, there's a cop that got run over by Isabella Rossellini, and he plugs him in the chest, and he falls over and shoots and blows his own head off with a shotgun, and it is hilarious. This movie gets hyper violent randomly, and that's how Lynch films are. Lynch films will be like a normal film that you could watch with your kid, and then all of a sudden there's something hyper violent or titties, or like just like or rape or violence against women. Like it's very strange how he does that. It's kind of like telling I always feel like I felt this in Lost Highway, and I also feel this even in this to a degree. Is he tells these old stories, they're like noir genre stories, and then just adds in a bunch of weird, crazy shit, and then has everything pause. I was saying to Riss when we were watching Lost Highway, and it applies to this as well, is if you listen to them deliver lines, there's usually a pause between every single line. They'll say a sentence and sit, let it breathe. Say a sentence, and then we'll let it breathe. Like there is very little... and like some of the scenes when they're like talking to all those people, it's more normal dialogue delivery. But anything that's like slow, like creepy, that's meant to be weird and creepy, everything is always delivered so slowly.
Yeah, it's like when they're having it's like an isolated moment between two characters, where it's like to enhance the intensity of the scene. Like, I didn't really think about it until you just mentioned it, but yeah, it's like I think that's why that stands out so much too. because it's like it's very it's very unique, and it's an unsettling thing because it's not
It's
normal
uncanny.
conversation.
It's
Yeah.
uncanny. I think that's what it is. He does it in Twin Peaks. He does it in a lot of his
Mhm.
films. Um, it's like
Yeah,
those
definitely does that in Dune.
the people. I think it's like people that feel the need to talk to feel uncomfortable, the uncomfortable
Mm.
silence. Lynch wants to force the audience to sit in that silence to sit in it for the whole movie, and that washes this feeling of unease over you. I think this
Mhm.
feels off. This feels like it's the dreaminess. It's what feels dreamy. It's the music. The Angela Badalamenti scores in both of these films, also scores Twin Peaks.
Yeah, very.
Adds to that dreaminess, like the synth chords, and between that and like the way that how like the time it's taken, and these movies are long, and this one
Mm.
feels long to me in the third, in like the 3/4 of the way through. I started to feel like, holy shit, how is this ending and when is this
Really?
ending? Not like I was like mad about it. The ending is actually pretty decent. It just didn't feel like a good payoff for all the vibes that was set up in the beginning.
Yeah.
Um,
I could feel that. The
like
I
post
my
bank robbery is what I'm saying. Like the bank robbery part
okay.
was good. It was interesting and fun, but it's like before and after that, they took a lot of time on things, and I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say the when they got to like New Orleans and it just became like like nothing but just sex scenes and roads. That's where it kind of like that was my slog point. But that once we got into Big Tuna and you met Bobby Peru, I that like hooked me back in for the rest of the film. But afterwards, after the arrest and everything, like the whole when he runs away and then fights those like street gang people just surround him out of nowhere
That
for
yeah,
no
the
reason.
ending. Yeah,
Like
I want to talk about that, but I was gonna. Well, I think I like that the part that you said you thought was a slog better because it was like so that you're just immersed in this their passion, and like it wasn't about the destination. It wasn't about the places that they were at. It was just about
mm,
them being in love and whatever. And I don't know. I really connected with that part more, even though it was less narrative. I was just basically the Johnny storyline in the first half then.
mm.
But I
It's
don't know. I like that better. And I think once it started moving, I thought that it'd be maybe different or more. My expectations of like a payoff were, other than Willem Dafoe's head getting blown off, it didn't feel like a fulfilling conclusion.
yeah. I guess for me it was it not so much like I liked what that segment was. I just felt like it was just I guess it was like one too many sex scenes dragged it on for me a little bit. Um but as a concept, yeah, I totally dug it.
I don't think I could have did
Did
it
you
much
get
longer than what it was. I like the well, and
yeah.
it's also the repetition of the motif. I think is the themes and the motif because you keep
Mm,
also getting during each of those sex scenes, you get the flashbacks. They reveal a little bit
yeah.
more about the backstory. Yeah, you see like the flaming house and the road, and
The
the metal
flaming car, the blowing up
music.
car.
Yeah, the blowing up. Yeah, yes. And you see all those little glimpses, and you learn a little bit more about the characters. You learn a little story about their life. I don't know. I found that part interesting and atypical for most most movies, the way that they were handling that, taking their time and it really was spent. The time was definitely spent in using the repetition of the motifs and everything was to just immerse you in their love and their passion and being on the run and whatever. But I mean, I agree. I agree that could be, especially for like a normal kind of movie, it becomes more paced normally after that point. So I could see that people it'd be harder, it'd be more challenging than that. But yeah, I don't disagree though. I can totally see that perspective.
Yeah, I was gonna say I agree with it is very interesting because normally in movies you get just like an exposition dump in a single bedroom scene, but doing the little breadcrumb trickling of it, because it still just raises not it gives you some answers to backstory, but also raises some questions to
Exactly. Yeah. Yes.
get more involved with it.
Mm-hmm. But like little shorts, like a short series almost.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah,
that.
I can definitely
like
appreciate that. Yeah.
It starts to fall apart for me with the gangs and like how they don't really do anything until the end. It's very that is probably my biggest issue with it. I think this is probably, aside from Dune, which I think Dune is a solid movie for what it is. I think this is, as far as Lynch movies, I think this is his weakest film that I've seen.
Really?
I mean, he just has a high bar. It doesn't mean that it sucks. It's just that I've seen almost all of them, like I said, except for Elephant Man and Straight Story, and I would say this is his weakest in my opinion. Still cool, and if you were into Lynch, you should definitely see. If you're into Nicolas Cage, Laura Dern, or David Lynch, you should see this film. Absolutely. Laura Dern is hot in this movie. And I never really looked, like I said, our first introduction to her was Jurassic Park. So I've never really looked at her like that way. Even though she's probably in her mid-20s when Jurassic Park came out, I always, like, she had a motherly vibe, I think, just because I was a little kid seeing that movie, and she took care of those kids in that movie. And it's weird. So I've only ever viewed her that way. And because I haven't seen a lot of films where she was sexy, and this was like, whoa. And she was young. She does seem about 20. And I was just, her performance was very different than the typical Laura Dern character, and I think that was really cool. And she was awesome. Nicolas Cage is great. This was a role made for Nicolas Cage.
100%.
This movie was a movie made for Nicolas Cage. Because it's, even with the quietness, the moments of chaos, who else do you want in that? And your lead male role than Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, exactly. He's perfect for this kind of over the top thing. I mean, it's like what he said in the interview. He brings like a little bit of theater to the performance, that over exaggeration, but it works so well when you're trying to.
I remember this movie has definitely has some, or I guess, you know what movie has some DNA of this?
What?
That's newer from the last few years.
What?
Mandy.
Yeah, I could see
the beginning half where they're fucking laying in bed for like an hour of the fucking movie, and then Nicolas Cage is in it, and the range of I'm so in love and in a passionate relationship. They're just older people. They're just 40s, 30, 40s and 50s instead of 20s. And
I can definitely see that.
And then it's just like it's different. It's definitely not the same. The plot is completely different because the kidnapping and the rescuing, and everything. But there is some DNA. There is some DNA of this movie in that one.
Yeah, I definitely see that.
Mainly the beginning, and I want to do Mandy for this. I was hoping to do it around Halloween, but our fucking October is stacked. I keep finding out about movies that I don't know what it is about the marketing teams of these films, but they're like announcing them and then they're coming out in like a month or 2 months or something, 3 months. I just found out about Tragedy Macbeth. I want to see The Duelist by Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott's got another movie coming out later, I think, or early 2022.
You have the release schedules backed up from no one releasing movies.
That's what it is.
Now.
Yeah, that's what it is. So like, but they're not announcing them well ahead of time, I think, because of the chaos of our times. So you're only hearing about a movie at most 3 months ahead of time, and that's rare. That's only for the big ones, like your Shang-Chi's and whatnot. But sorry, digress. This is
no worries. But I wanted to talk about the cinematography on this one. Watching both of these movies really picked me up on the how Lynch likes his movies lit, which is just top light, spotlight, with dark walls and dark backgrounds. And there's so much of this and Lost Highway that are lit like that on all the interior scenes.
Twin Peaks has lighting like that.
Yeah, yeah. That's just like it has to be Lynch's style because it's all of his movies are
Blue Velvet too.
similarly.
Blue Velvet too. The inner her apartment in
Yep,
Isabella's apartment is similar as well.
it's top light spotlight. It's very
What it
interesting
makes it
because
feel
I
almost it makes it feel it's like a mixture of a stage and
yeah
real
that's what I was
life
gonna say.
lighting. It's like stage and real life because like lamps are usually have a nice
Mhm.
effect in a lot of his stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not like First Reformed where it's only lamps, but
Mhm.
they still have they're not blown out by the lighting, but also it's like the characters are lit up like like a stage, or it's like, and he uses curtains a lot. He uses
Yes.
curtains constantly, so it does. I think maybe that's what it is the theater feel. Like the
Yeah,
picture
it's
I have up on the thing right now is two characters in front of a black dark curtain, and they're lit up well, and it's usually warm yellow lighting, and then everything in the background is darker.
it's like a moving. I'm trying to think of how I would describe it, but it's a moving play where it's instead of just when the lights go dark and the set changes, you actually get to move with the characters in the real world from set to set. And it's just having the lighting be so spotlighty just also just isolates the dialogue in addition to those pauses that you mentioned. It really makes you just like pay attention, I guess, and listen to each person who has their moment to speak.
Um, yeah, and like there's two ways you can when you're not in the mood to watch this kind of movie, it can be fatiguing to
Mhm.
just sit in the silence and get piecemealed your information. But when you're really just ready for this kind of film and you just sit down and turn and you just vibe with it and like let it happen, every line is you're hanging on it, you're waiting for it, you're hanging on it, and just like, what does this reveal? What mystery does this create? Or
Mhm.
I don't know. That's why I love his stuff. He's definitely and I know it's like not cliche, but pretty common for someone that's into movies to say Lynch is one of their favorites, but he definitely is. I can't, even when I don't vibe with it, I'm super like, not vibe with it, but even if I'm not like, I'm super enthralled into this movie, engrossed into what this movie is, I'm so always appreciating the style and like what, like if you ever want to learn how to make an uneasy scene, watch Lynch movies. Like uneasy without something drastic. It's very minimal. These are like small attentions to detail and stuff like we said, line delivery, lighting, the basics of filmmaking. And this goes back to Eraserhead. And Eraserhead is probably turning that shit up to such a high degree that it is harsh. It's like harsh noise to watch that movie.
I hate watching that movie.
I think I want to watch it. We'll do it. If we continue doing this, we'll do it eventually because it's a must see for this sort of shit. But
me watching it in not a college theater with the sound cranked will definitely be a lot more enjoyable when I can control the volume.
Yeah, the sound of that movie is grating, but it's meant to be so.
It won several awards and praises for the sound design. Groundbreaking sound design.
All right, I think we should get moving on this one.
Do you want to just talk about the ending with the Glenda the Good Witch just showing up at the end?
Oh yeah. I mean, just the fact that there's a Wizard of Oz theme throughout the film,
throughout the whole movie. Yeah.
It's kind of not overt. It's not like heavy. Like it's not necessary to read, but it's like it constantly keeps coming up. They get referenced it. She clicks her heels in one scene, and then straight up, that's the actress who plays Laura Dern from Twin Peaks. The Good Witch shows up at the end so Nicolas Cage gets jumped by this gang. He calls them a homosexual slur, and so he rightfully, that's what we kept saying, like people should use this as like, this is what happens when you call people a slur, you get beat the fuck up. And then and then he learns his lesson. Says, you know what? I'm sorry. He literally says, "I'm sorry for calling you all homosexuals. I learned my lesson, and I'm going to be kinder in the future," or something like that. And
I'm going to be a father.
and he runs and becomes dad, and that's the end of the movie.
But he finally sings the song.
Love me, yeah. They foreshadow. He's always sing "Love Me Tender" to my wife or something like that.
And it was very beautiful. The credits roll as he sings the whole song as they spin around him and Laura Dern embracing. It was sweet. It was very. I mean, this is what this is what I mean about, like, if you go back to that rock club scene in the beginning, you can go from, this movie goes from Bobby Peru blowing his head off accidentally to fucking Love Me Tender, all within half an hour.
Yeah, this movie has a range, and that's how I think we'd said that before with Lynch's films. It's not all of them, but there's like a sweetness and like I said, a story, a family story is in a lot of these movies. And if there is a risque element, it doesn't need to be. It could easily just be toned down in a more typical movie or film or TV show or something. But this just cranks up the craziness, and it's at these random times. Oh my god, dude, we didn't talk about Diane Ladd putting lipstick all over her face.
Oh my gosh, I heard about that.
It was very jarring. Very jarring.
Yeah, very creepy. That reminded me of like a Wizard of Oz witch a lot too. Like,
that's probably what they were going with. Yeah, that's probably what they're going with. I didn't think about that. But all right, we should probably move on here. So, what are you giving Wild at Heart?
I liked it, but definitely not my favorite of Lynch films. But I was thinking a 3.5.
I think I'm also gonna give it a 3.5. I wavered between the 3 and 3.5, but I think this movie's too fucking cool. And it's just there's so much to learn from it. There's so much to get from it. It's just both of these films are challenging, just in different ways. And you just have to go into it knowing that the slow, like it's gonna drift through it. At its pace, at a leisurely pace, but a slow pace. But all right, I liked it. Wild at Heart.
Yeah, I'd recommend it.
So Lost Highway is interesting because Lost Highway, I have previously called my favorite Lynch film.
Interesting.
Yes. I was very fucking creeped out by it the first time because of there's a lot of interesting factoids about this movie, and a few people died after this film. It was their last roles. Also, one character in this murdered someone after this film.
Dun dun dun.
And all right, so if anyone in this film murdered somebody, who do you think it would be? You don't know. You don't know, right? You don't know
I don't know. No, I don't know.
That's kind of good that I look up I dogged you for it earlier, but it's kind of good that I look up the facts and then I can spring them on you and surprise you halfway through.
I would say. I mean, I feel like the obvious one would be the mysterious man who is in two places at once,
played by Robert Blake.
Yeah, I feel like that would be the obvious answer because he's creepy as fuck. But
maybe it is. That is the answer.
It is.
It is.
Oh fuck. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, Robert Blake murdered his wife after this film was made. I think he's in prison, or if he's not, he might be dead now. Nope, not dead. Oh yeah, 2005. He was found liable in civil court only for a wrongful death. He's not in prison. He was acquitted and then found liable in civil court. I think he hired a hitman or something.
Jesus, man, just divorce. It's
His wife was fatally shot in the head while sitting in Blake's vehicle.
Wow.
Yeah. Also, Jack Nance, who plays Pete Martell, and the Eraserhead actor. He's in this film briefly. He passed away after this was made. Also, Richard Pryor with a small cameo in this movie. He passed away also after this was made. So there's a little spookies hanging over this one, and I think that kind of adds to this already incredibly fucking creepy movie. So I'll give. I'll let you go. Let me give a brief synopsis. Our main character is Bill Pullman. He is a saxophonist. He is a jazz
What?
man.
Is that the actual term for that?
I don't know if some people pronounce it saxophonist, but I think that the proper pronunciation is a saxophonist.
That's wild. I've never heard that before, or pronounced like that.
I feel like we got to settle this, but I'll look that up when it's your turn. So he's a saxophonist. He's a jazz man, and he's very good or whatever. And he's a little older, and his wife is played by Patricia Arquette, and he suspects her of cheating, and that's kind of the thing. He gets a tape in the mail, and it is a tape of his home. He gets a second tape in the mail. It is a tape of the inside of his home, and they suspect that someone is stalking him. Or them, and that's what sets up the film. He also gets there's an intercom in his house, like for the doorbell, and the very beginning of the film, you just hear the phrase "Dick Laurent is dead," and that's what sets it up. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this movie is just so weird. I was so confused and for a lot of it, but and I really felt like the beginning was super creepy and interesting, but then I felt like it slogged, and I was almost like it was almost losing me until it just changes to a completely different movie when you get to with that character, what is his name, Pete Dayton, and then I just was just like, what the heck? It was, that hooked me from there on, because I just want to know why. I want to know where this is going.
Thanks for watching.
But there's so many similarities to the stuff going on in Bill Pullman's world, like reality versus like this like dream state thing. It was very interesting. It took me off guard at first, but then I upon learning about it afterwards, I'm all in on this movie. This movie's rad.
So yeah, I think this is a movie that requires, it's not even that it's suggested, this movie requires multiple viewings to fully understand. Because you watch it the first time, you're not going to get half of it, because literally you're not supposed to get half of it. And then the end of it feels like brings it all together. Even this time, because it's been a while since I've watched this, and I did not know what was going on in the beginning of the movie. I was just like, what? This guy's in his house, but he's at this party. He's obviously something supernatural. Or something's going on, but basically Bill Pullman murders his wife, goes to prison. It's not fully clear that he murders his wife because you see it in a VHS tape. But he goes to prison, and he's in there. He's going to be put in an electric chair. And he starts freaking out. He's having all these crazy headaches, and all of a sudden he transforms into Pete Dayton, a young man in his early 20s. And they notice that he's no longer Bill Pullman's character, Fred Madison, and they let him out. Pete Dayton's played by Balthazar Getty. Then the movie just becomes about Pete's story and about the woman who's also played by Patricia Arquette but blonde, and how she's seducing him. And it's essentially two movies in one, like we were saying before. And it's not like Fred Madison transforms to Pete Dayton, and then the movie becomes about Pete Dayton, but then it's the same woman's in the movie, and it's just it doesn't add up.
Yeah, when it got to the two detectives that were watching Pete Dayton and Mr. Eddie comes up, and they're like, "Do you know who that is?" And it's like, "That's Laurent." And I'm like, that's when it was like starting to be, all right, this has to be tied to Bill Pullman in some way. Like, I'm just waiting for that to like cross back over. But also, like, how did Bill Pullman just get out of jail and become Pete Dayton? Like, and then no one is telling him about what happened that night, between his Pete Dayton's girlfriend and his parents, his dad's played by Gary Busey.
Yeah, they don't. Like, I don't think they do tell you. They don't even tell you. There's just this weird scene of like a cocoon opening or something. There's like this
Yeah.
like fleshy pod opening, and like it's really even hard to see that, and that's all you get.
Yeah. The when you have like they keep referencing the like what happened the other night, and but you never see it. The other than the cocoon thing, like you were saying, but it just keeps go as it goes on further, and then you meet Patricia Arquette. At the she comes with Mr. Eddie into the garage with Richard Pryor runs. His name's Arnie. Um, it starts just getting more and more weird because then you get later on in the movie after they do the relationship, and they're like she's like cheating on Mr. Eddie. They go to this guy Andy's house, and that's the guy who was holding the party from the beginning of the movie. Bill Pullman was at, and it's just like the realities are together, but then you see the picture of that they're twin sisters in the picture frame
In
at Andy's
Pete's
house.
story,
Yeah,
yeah,
in Pete's
that's
story, and
and
it's
then
just
later they see the same picture again.
yeah, but it's with only one Patricia Arquette, and it was fucking with me so much because I was so confused during this movie.
Yeah, it's meant you're meant to be confused until the ending, and then you start putting it together. But even then, it's like you're not sure, and then you have to like really think about it.
Mhm.
This movie is like Riz said it reads like a novel. That's what she said. Like after watching it, that it's like a book can do something like because books you're usually inside the person's head. You're like reading their inner monologue of the main
Mhm.
character, and then like what they observe and what they see and what they do or whatever. And this felt like that, like where we were just inside Bill Pullman's head. So it was a very limited view of what was happening, and then it just like it morphed into this other story, and then you're still seeing that perspective only. But and there's weird hints of the previous character, and it's not clear. And you're just getting these little snippets of information that contradict this reality. I don't know. I thought that was a really good point, and I think that's what makes this so unique and interesting. And obviously, he perfected this with Mulholland Drive, but this is like
Mm.
Mulholland Drive is dark, but I think I maybe just being in edgy boy shit into edgy boy shit that's why I like this more is because of how dark it is, and maybe because it's male driven and it's just my own inner biases. But and the fucking mystery man is so creepy when he's like, "What the fuck is your name?" And I was like, "Oh my god, this is fucking creepy as fuck." It's very very jarring. Or like even like the sex scene in the desert, and she's like, "You'll never have
Yeah,
me," and um,
yeah,
this is a very it just feels dark, even darker than it is. But it's I mean it's about a woman cheating on her husband and the husband murdering his wife.
yeah. And none knowing that like the I guess for the spoiler like the movie like from the Pete Davis I feel like we have to spoil it to kind of really
You
talk
have
about
to,
like
because you illustrate how fucking weird it is without that.
yeah. So I guess the whole like Pete Dayton storyline on is just takes place in Bill Pullman's head, um, and it's just him just I guess like breaking from reality and just like imagining this shit going on while he's waiting on death row, um, and like he's trying to create this like perfect little life, but then things from reality start creeping into his little fantasy in his head, um and it just like you're seeing this like more warp and twisted way of like kind of like how things were going down in his head. I guess it's very it's there's layers. There's so much to it, but it is so good. And then after knowing that, because it makes you just like I'm probably gonna watch this a second time over the next week just because I want to just rewatch all the different things and how they connect and everything.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's hard. I think usually me and you end up watching these towards the end of the week, so there's only a little like a day between this podcast. But some of the movies like this, I probably wish I'd watch earlier in the week, so then I could stew
Hmm.
on it and get a chance to watch it again if I wanted to, before we did this, because it would be, I think it'd be helpful. Uh, it's just, it's like, does a movie requiring a second watch mean it's better, when it's like a little dense like this, like dense as far as easy to understand.
Yeah, I
Um,
think you have to go in knowing what it is. I think if you went in blind, you wouldn't like it necessarily because of how confusing it would be. But I think if you're aware of what kind of movie it is going in, I think that um I think it comes off great. Like it does what it's trying to do, and you can then really take in like the deepness to it and just let the weird be weird and enjoy it for what it is.
yeah, yeah, and then, like, it's a mystery movie, but it's not
Hmm.
a traditional. And then it's literally two different mysteries. A mystery movie inside of a mystery movie, just at its base, but it's a mystery movie in terms of how, in like, it's an abstraction. It's like metaphorical. It's a more cerebral mystery than just figuring out these things of reality. Like, you have to find the clues in this guy's warped psyche of what's going on. But yeah, and that's it. It's meant to be not easy to understand. It's meant to be, and not in the way that people like, I'm trying to make something deep by making it complex. It's not even that it's complex. It's that it is just the way it's interwoven in the attention to the detail with like these two different worlds and the overlappings of them. It's just really, really, really good, really fascinating. And I've never really seen, other than Mulholland Drive, I've never really seen a lot of movies that do this. And if they do, if I have,
Hmm.
just not this well.
Yeah.
Just like where you're at
The
the end and you're just like, wow, I like everything I invested in this, like, and then all this confusion for this hour and a half that's a
mm,
payoff, to like get it and like not get it until the end and finally like put it together, or even not even fully, because I don't ever feel sure after this movie. Like you said, you had to read a wiki. I watched YouTube videos, and analyses about it.
yeah.
But like you don't even feel like on solid ground when you're done, but you're just like, understanding it and putting those things together in the end. It's like an aha moment, that feels good. Um,
Yeah, definitely.
it's kind of, I
And
imagine it's kind of like how people that like hard video games like Dark Souls or something, like when they
mhm,
finally beat that boss, it's like, I
yeah.
don't like those kind of games because I don't want to have a hard time I don't
Oh,
want
I
to
love them.
put in all that work to then get that payoff. This feels like that. I'm putting in this detective work and this work as the audience to get this payoff in the end, and that's what this kind of movie is.
But
Um,
I think it pays off though in this instance.
I know it does.
Um,
It does. I think this pays off much better than Wild at Heart does. Not that
yeah.
Wild at
I,
Heart is a similar structure, but this was a fulfilling conclusion.
yeah, I initially liked Wild at Heart more, but as this one has stewed, it's like I definitely feel the first half of the movie, like pre Pete Dayton, it can be a little too slow, but because I
It's
think the
so
runtime is like
dreamy
two
though.
hours
It's like the
15.
dreamiest shit in the beginning. Like,
Yeah, but and it's visually it's not like for me at least it's because it's so dark and it's so like orange and brown like it's visually unsettling for me and all this stuff so it just made it almost like a hard until like you get to the Pete Dayton stuff. Well, honestly, even once you get to the tape that has him like with the cut off limbs and blood everywhere like the of him murdering his wife. Like from there on, I was in. I was like fine. I didn't feel like there was any slowdown after that. But it was just. It, but like now it's like now knowing I feel like I would not be nearly as bogged down by that. Um, which
I,
warrants like the second watch.
I like the beginning so much because of how dreamy it is. It doesn't feel
Mm.
real. Um, It's so slow and dreamy, and it's like this is like Lynch at his dreamiest. But then it's like
Yeah.
when it's interesting that when we're in reality, it is dreamiest, and when we are in the dream, it is more like a regular movie.
Yes.
That is
Yeah.
gotta be on purpose, because
Oh.
there's this contrast between when we're in Bill Pullman's story and it's batshit insane, and when we're in Balthazar Getty's story and it is a more like it's weird, but it's more like a normal film. Remember,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know what movie reminds me of the Balthazar Getty part?
What?
Is um uh what's it? The Silver Lake. Was it beneath the Silver Lake or beyond? The one with Andrew Garfield.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
Remember you brought it? I brought it up, and you said you brought it up
Mhm.
to some friends, and they said it sucked.
Yeah.
Uh, well, it
Yeah.
isn't great. It's a really indulgent movie, but its story reminds me of kind of Balthazar Getty's portion of Lost Highway.
Interesting.
I
Yeah,
would like to watch that movie because I think you would like it. You would recognize that it's flawed, but I think Under the Silver Lake, that's what it's called. It's noir. It's very like a neo noir mystery. There's a lot involved in it. It's very like Maximal movie, not in terms of production, just like they're throwing the kitchen sink at you narrative wise, and it's pretty much it's kind of to its detriment. But this reminded me of that. I want to watch that someday. Yeah, I think it's still. I had it at a 5 out of 5 before this.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna do that today, but I think I'm still gonna rate it pretty high. Is there anything that big that you wanted to talk about before we head to the wrap things up?
I mean, from a cinematography standpoint, it's very similar to Wild at Heart, but darker. It just takes that spotlight and just cranks in the darkness on around it. Where they have those sweeping shots where it's just like a phone ringing in a different room on a different table on a different
There's a lot
area.
of
And it's
phones.
just, yeah, it's
Phones
just
and
spotlight on
technology.
everything.
There's a lot of
Uh,
phones and technology, video
yeah,
recorders, intercoms, but
cell phones.
not like high tech stuff, but just technology is involved.
Mhm.
And we got to bring up the line that is the keystone of the film. That when Bill Pullman says, when the cops come and they're talking about tapes, he's like, they ask him if he has a video recorder, and he says,
Yeah.
I don't own a video recorder. Or she says he doesn't. Patricia Arquette says he doesn't own a video recorder. And he's like, yeah, I don't like video recorders. I like to remember stuff the way I remember them, not necessarily the way that they happened.
Yeah, that was so
Like, who the
that's
fuck
just so
says that?
relatable.
I mean,
But
it
it's
is
so relatable.
relatable,
Like,
but like, who wants to reject reality for what they think happened? Like,
I mean,
I'm somebody
look at
that is always worried that I am living in a warped world. Like, my perspective
yeah.
is not what it actually is. So
Mhm.
I like that, having that technology.
Yeah, I agree that on that aspect. But I was just gonna say, look at like a large section of the country. Like they abide by the laws of Bill Pullman's lines.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's fact, but an undeniable
Yeah,
fact if it's not in their worldview.
exactly. Like that's what it just felt so relatable and just like, man, that is just immediately what I thought was just like that's half the fucking country. But
Yeah, sorry, podcast. It's the first time I might have ever yawned on here. That is really the line that puts it all together. And if you don't realize it at the time how important it is, because it's kind of just
Mhm.
innocuous when you're in the beginning, but when you
Yeah, yeah.
think about it at the end, you're just like, well, that's because he's rejecting reality and substituting his own
Yeah.
fantasy, and it's whether you either to cope with his impending death, or to just come to terms with the actions that he did, because he was very much in denial that he murdered his wife. Whereas
Mm.
by the end of it, his character seems to be very lucid with that he murdered his wife and killed Dick Laurent. The one thing that is inconsistent, and I don't know if it's supposed to mean something more abstract, so we find out in the end that Bill Pullman is the guy. He says into his own intercom that Dick Laurent is dead. So he hears it in the beginning and he says it in the end. And I don't know if that was supposed to be a reference to how the mystery man is in two places at once, because it kind of fucks with time, and which the movie does not do in any other point. So I didn't. That is my only. I don't understand what this was supposed to mean or represent.
I think that so what I took it as was the beginning parts and why everything is so weird is just you have Bill Pullman hitting his psychotic break moment where it's almost becoming like schizophrenic, where he is himself in the parts where he's calling the police. He's watching the videotapes with Patricia Arquette, and they're normal. And then this other part of him is the part that's doing the videotaping and killing his wife and everything. And so I think that that was just like an hallucination kind of thing. And then when you get to the latter half of the movie, where you realize that this is all just taking place inside of his head, it's just kind of like that's his way of tying it to that like hallucination, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. I think I know what you mean. Yeah, it is. It is like the loop. It closes the loop. I think I watched a video that called it I think they said a Mobius loop. How he's like weaving in and out of reality and his like the fake reality that he's made for himself. So it's like
Yeah.
then there's these moments that are like halfway of both. Like looking at the picture or I guess the ending. Yeah, this movie isn't messy or like I know we talk about flaws in movies. Like I can't see anything in that regard at all. How do you feel about Balthazar Getty's performance? Because he didn't get a ton of work after this.
I thought it was fine. Like I mean, it wasn't anything like standout. It's not like I didn't find him as engaging as Bill Pullman as his performance, but just where the character itself was going is what I was interested in. So I guess in that regard, yeah, I thought he did a good job because it kept me hooked on what it was. But it's the kind of the way the character's written. He's very reserved. He's very like short with how he talks, and very kind of like non-expressive, but I just took that as being part of the character.
Yeah, he does show TV after this. He's on Charmed and Alias, and things like that. But as far as films, he doesn't do much big stuff after Lost Highway, which I thought was interesting because I didn't think his performance was I didn't think it was bad at all. But I don't know if Lost Highway was how much it made money wise. How'd you feel about all the performances? Is there anything else that stood out to you?
No, it was really good. The mystery man, it's creepy as hell. I love the Patricia Arquette's character was very great. That very just soft, somber spoken, every line of dialogue, but still like something feels off, like completely off. Um, I like I loved Robert Loggia, Mr. Eddie. He has such a booming
he's
voice
always pretty
for what he
good.
looks like.
He always plays a gangster, but
Yeah.
he's always good
Oh,
at that.
we have to talk about the tailgating scene with Robert Loggia, where the dude's
Oh
tailgating.
yeah.
He's
You
like,
could send this to anybody about that you don't want to tailgate.
"Oh my
Or
god, it
teach
was
them why
so funny."
tailgating is wrong. Yeah, that was
And he
probably
just
one of the funniest
listing out
parts.
all the statistics while he's pistol whipping him with a Desert Eagle. Like, oh man, that was such a good point of like humor and levity in a movie that was just so like heavy
Brooding. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, we didn't
Like it
talk.
was
I just remembered. We didn't talk about sex in this film because sex is also a heavy theme. But
yeah,
it's
both these
different
movies.
but it's different. It's darker.
Mhm.
I saw some people looking at it reading against pornography, like things like reading it as pornography is evil. Like cheating is evil and murder is evil. But also these people are pornographers and they're taking advantage of Patricia Arquette. Me and Riss likened it more in the modern sense of sex trafficking, since she was like violently forced into this work. That is also sex work. Apparently, it's not just, and porn is sex work, but it seems like acts as well. As far as for Mr. Eddie.
Well, I because of the because we don't explicitly know. Bill Pullman doesn't know exactly what Patricia Arquette like the job was. She just meant like, oh, we met at Moki's, and they offered me a job, and she's like, of course I didn't take it. But then in the fantasy world, Bill Pullman's fantasy with P.D. Dayton, I think that's just in his head what he assumed what it was, and that was him trying to like assume the worst because he was already like hyper paranoid of like the cheating and everything.
I think I don't know. Maybe I thought that part was real because I thought it was shown in the end that they were at the porn place and like when the cops were there, and then that's still the.
But
film.
that's all still part of. That's Bill Pullman's like fantasy breaking.
Yeah, but then the cops the cops are there again and seeing the cops are there seeing the picture when it's not two, it's just one, and they're not in the Balthazar Getty world anymore.
But because I didn't think that Andy was killed in real life because Bill Pullman is still just in his cell the whole time.
No, yeah, he was. No, so what it is that showing what Bill Pullman did. Bill Pullman killed Andy. Bill Pullman killed Dick Laurent,
gotcha.
Killed Dick Laurent and killed his wife. That's what it was illustrating. Like Balthazar Getty, whoever he killed, was that was Bill Pullman killing them.
But before he was
arrested. Like, yes, that's the time thing.
Okay.
So I thought that was all actions just like that Bill Pullman did, but through Balthazar Getty. Not the story, not the story, but the ending scene where he hid in there, knocked him on the head, and he falls into the glass.
Yeah.
Man, I always think about that with glass tables, and that's the first time I've ever seen it in a movie. Happen like that.
It was very unsettling. I always think about that when you have like little babies that are first learning to walk around coffee tables, like, and they're hitting their heads on things.
Yeah, you can't have a glass coffee table around no babies.
No, you can't have any coffee tables around babies.
But yeah, good film. It was still one of my favorites, but I think I personally like it more than others, but I understand why. Blue Velvet is probably my favorite and the best, but I recognize Mulholland. I recognize Mulholland Drive is a better film than this one. I just think there's something I like about this vibe better. Like I'm not into the Hollywood thing. I think that's why I don't like Mulholland Drive. Is I'm not really into the acting world Hollywood thing. I'm into it. I love it, but just not as much as this. Like I don't have this affinity for old Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean this is still shot in Hollywood, but like the Los Angeles area. But it's not like a love letter like Mulholland Drive feels like.
Yeah, Mulholland Drive is almost like what's the name of it? The Tarantino one?
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yes. Different movies, but definitely both love letters to Hollywood. I think another thing that makes this movie creepy as shit is Marilyn Manson. The soundtrack, which is produced by Trent Reznor, the score is done by Angelo Badalamenti. So I was confused about who does what in that. But the soundtrack has a lot of pop, like heavy pop music at the time. Marilyn Manson's has a song that plays in the movie, and he's also one of the porn actors in the film.
I thought that was him.
Yeah, him. Twiggy Ramirez from his band, who also I think is now outed as a piece of shit. Yeah. So having those pieces of shit being a part that has to do with like having bad things done to Patricia Arquette, kind of just made it even more real. Just like with Robert Blake being a murderer, actually.
Yeah.
That makes this movie. It's like, and this is gonna sound. I don't know, but it's like think about Linkin Park, right? Linkin Park
Yeah.
was a pop metal band. They had emotional lyrics, but they were essentially still a pop metal band and new metal band. And they made catchy songs for people, whatever. You don't, you think about the lyrics or whatever, but you just like, oh, they just wrote this for whatever. Like they're not really, feeling that. And now, in the present, with Chester Bennington dead of suicide, I really, that music that were just, emo lyrics, over the top, literal emo lyrics before have a much different context now. Much realer, visceral, and darker context when you know that there's a meaning and weight, and they weren't just wrote for nothing. They weren't just wrote to make a hit.
Yeah.
And this film, well, already is creepy as fuck, but just knowing that there's real sexual abusers in it and real murderer, and not saying that this is cool or good, that people should try to do this. It's just a thing that happened, as history goes on. You shouldn't cast murderers and rapists in movies on purpose, but it does add this layer of reality, of real evil to a movie about evil. Mystery Man is at its simplest reading is a personification of evil. He's what's manipulating Bill Pullman to murder his wife. And it's just his evil in his soul or mind or whatever.
Yeah, it's like his paranoia personified into like a manifestation of his like dark side.
Yes, essentially.
But I as far as the score goes, though, I like that Rammstein song that got a reprisal. It came in twice.
Yes, it did come in twice.
But
Rammstein is big.
Yeah, they're that was pretty cool. But the opening when
David Bowie song
opening credits, the opening credits where it's just like that like synth.
That's 90s David Bowie. That's his sound in the 90s.
Yeah, it took
it's like
me
electronic, weird electronic, artsy.
The way I just thought, I was thinking about this after I watched Wild at Heart too, and I was like, all of the scores of these two movies are so like noticeable, and I can't tell if it's necessary in a good or bad way. Like it works because of just how Lynch does his movies and everything. But I feel like if it was in a not Lynch movie, I feel like it would be like a cheesy score.
I don't think they're cheesy. The metal at least. I think that it can date them. The metal and the industrial for Lost Highway does date it a little bit, but I think it also, like, these are like dark genres and they fit with a dark film, and it is nice to see different genres utilized in a dark noir film besides jazz or synths, horror synths, So I think that is creative, and I think that's why it transcends the date of that. No one did 90s David Bowie is not considered essential David Bowie. It's or just the Trent Reznor soundtrack. It's once you see that, it makes sense when you've watched that film. Like it sounds like that, and not like a new Trent Reznor soundtrack, a Trent Reznor in 9 Inch Nails soundtrack.
Yeah.
With the selections of the pop songs and whatnot. But yeah, great film. That was a good point though. I think we should score this and wrap it up. We gotta get moving. What are you giving Lost Highway?
Originally, after I initially watched it, I was sitting in like the 3s just for like all style holding it up. But now I've gone through like learning about it and gone through it and hashing it out. I originally didn't like this more than Wild at Heart, but now I think I'm so close to a 4 with it.
So
I think I'm just gonna give it a 4.
Okay, I think I'm giving it a 4.5.
Nice.
And it's just like I think like I said before, how much does needing a guide to fully understand the film, devalue it for
Impair it.
you.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. And if you're okay with watching a film twice to get it, I think then that is going to affect if you're below 4 or how much above 4 or whatever. I just looking at reviews from the people I follow, they're all 4s and 4.5s. There's 1.5 from Jay from Red Letter Media. Yeah, that's about where I find it. I don't, like I said, it's probably my personal favorite Lynch film, but I don't know if it is the best Lynch film.
Yeah, I think I like Mulholland Drive slightly better than this. And I definitely like Blue Velvet a lot more than this, but this is still really good. Like this is still a great film. And it just with every David Lynch film we've watched, I have more appreciation for the style.
Yes, and he's very consistent. Like he evolves over time, but
Mm.
a lot of his style is consistent throughout his work. Especially once you
Yeah.
get to Blue Velvet. Blue Velvet through Mulholland Drive is like that's all like his style at its peak, I would say. But all right. That sounds good. Anything else you wanna mention or talk about before we wrap up? I'm pulling up the calendar while you do it.
No, I'm just actually excited to. I know it's a slog. It could be a slog because how long it is, but has me excited to watch Inland Empire.
Yeah, I want to do that one for sure. Oh, Inland Empire is the other one I haven't seen. I haven't seen Elephant Man, Inland Empire, and The Straight Story.
I haven't seen any of those either.
All right, so next week we are doing Killing of a Sacred Deer and Teton.
Yes.
And Teton, let me see when that comes out because that's new. Release date's October 1st. So we'll have to see it this weekend. But it's a body horror movie and it's supposed to be good. A lot of people have been hyping it up. But all right, I'm excited. You're excited. People are out there. Like I said at the beginning, I got an email that on Apple. We are the number 8 film history podcast in Kazakhstan, the number 88 film history podcast in the United States. So keep listening. Make sure you follow on Spotify or whatever it is you listen to us on. If you want to see the video version, make sure you check it out on YouTube. Subscribe there. We're on Facebook and everything. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it.
See everybody later.
Bye.
Robert.